Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Balance in Life. We're going to be talking about our physical movement and how that is part of our overall wellness and how we can stay moving and active as the weather changes, as we spend more time at our desk, as a lot of our kids are spending more time at desk. And so we are happy to have with us Anna, who's going to talk with us about some tips that are some reminders and some new tips for us. I'm Crystal Tyler Mackey, happy to welcome you to this session on behalf of Virginia Cooperative Extension and North Carolina Cooperative Extension. If you're new to the Balance in Life session, welcome. Those who've been on before have heard us say, we like to be very active in the chat box. So as you have thoughts or questions or commentary, please feel free to drop those in the chat box. A quick reminder, this format is called a Zoom webinar. And so it's a little different than other meetings. So when you post something in the chat, right now, only Anna and I will see it unless you choose the drop-down menu that says all panelists and attendees. If you say all panelists and attendees, then everyone that's on will get a chance to see your question or your commentary, and we hope that you will do that. At any point, I'm going to get out of the way and turn it over very quickly to Anna. So welcome, Anna.
Hi, everyone. So as Crystal mentioned, I'm Anna Dysart. I am a PhD student at Virginia Tech in the Physical Activity Research and Community Implementation Lab. And so today we are going to be going over a few handouts on both physical activity for adults and children. So we'll start with the kids, move into some of our adult-focused physical activity recommendations and ways to kind of spice things up. And then at the very end, we're going to have a little bit of movement and activity to add into our morning right here in the webinar. So I'm going to start sharing my screen so that y'all can see our handouts. These handouts were created by another member of our Parsi lab, Abby. So this is our handout on 6 tips for kids and physical activity. Crystal will be able to send these out to y'all after the webinar, so y'all will be able to have these and review them at your leisure there. So our first tip is that kids need 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity activity every single day. So you might have seen this on various commercials or heard this from various different places, but this is one of the physical activity guidelines for Americans, specifically for kids. So that's aerobic activity most days of the week, and that can be play, anything that kids enjoy, whether that's sports, it can be jumping rope, it can be hopscotch. It doesn't have to be, as we kind of think of exercise, you know, running on a treadmill or using the elliptical. It can be any kind of aerobic activity, something that gets their heart rate up. And then 3 days a week, we want to concentrate on them building their muscular strength. So those are going to be things that really get their muscles moving and burning a little bit more. And bone building are things that are more impact activities. So things like jumping or walking, running, things like that, versus swimming. So swimming is a great aerobic activity, but it doesn't have that bone building impact that some other activities like jumping and even walking can have. For our kids, we want to concentrate on variety, proper form, and skills. So for long-term athletic development, we want our children to participate in multiple activities instead of specializing in one sport, particularly when they're on the younger side. We want them to have different skills and different physical activities and movements that they can explore and have throughout different activities or sports or dance classes, whatever the case may be there. For our kids, we really want to focus on positive feedback related to their intrinsic value of physical activity rather than you need to be the best and you need to win your sport, you need to win the race. So we really want to focus on trying our best and having fun. So we're praising sportsmanship and positive attitudes in our kids, whether they're our own kids or community kids. We really want to focus on, you know, having fun and letting them enjoy physical activity rather than making it a chore or making it something that they might not like in the future because they might not be the best, they might not win. And that's okay, as long as they're having fun and trying their best. We really want to emphasize effort and progress and skill development rather than winning. So even if they didn't win, maybe they, if they're playing baseball, maybe they scored a run this time instead of last game they didn't. Those kind of skill developments and progress are more important than winning the game overall. Our individual development is different, and we might recognize that from when we were kids. Developmental age and biological age are sometimes different. So progress may not be linear, and kids might develop at different times than their classmates or than their siblings did before them. So every kid is a little different, and we just have to enjoy that progress with them as long as they're trying their best and having fun. They might not meet those markers that other people in their classes have met before, and that's okay. We're moving into fall, and that's one of the titles of this webinar today, but we still want to be cautious with heat, particularly some of us that live more maybe towards the coast where it is still a little warmer. I live in the mountains, so it's already getting cooler here in October. But we want to be thinking that children are not miniature adults. They still have some issues with temperatures above 75 degrees in particular. So we want to make sure that children are hydrating. They're taking frequent shade breaks, and they're wearing light colored and lightweight clothing so that they don't overheat. So 75 degrees doesn't sound terribly hot, particularly as adults, we might think that sounds comfortable, but we want to think about our kids and how they have a little different thermoregulation in their body. So we want to make sure that they're hydrating, drinking that water. If they are playing outside for longer, they might get something like Gatorade that has some more electrolytes and carbs and sugar in it, but that's not necessary if it is a shorter duration or if the temperature is lower. Water is a great option there. You really want to save the sports drinks and things like that for when it is hotter and they've already been outside for an hour or more. And then we want to talk about how all fitness attributes are trainable for our children. So cardiovascular fitness, strength, flexibility, and neuromuscular control or coordination, those things that we think of as hand-eye coordination, hitting the ball, shooting the basket, those kind of things, they're all trainable. So just like we talked about earlier, we want to avoid the continuous, repetitive, high-stress movements. And one way we do that is by not specializing in a sport too early. Let them play baseball, basketball, swimming, dance, all at the, around the year instead of focusing strictly on one sport so that they get a little bit of different skills and different coordination skills as well. So this is our kids handout, so talking a little bit about them, but we're going to move on to what we can do as adults who might be working from home or even in the office, ways to stay active. These are mostly for at home, but also definitely apply if you are already back in the office. So our first tip is to know your why. So know why you want to be active. What is your personal reason? Why does it matter to you to be active? Do you want to be able to chase after your kids? Do you want to be able to take your dog for longer walks? What is your personal why? And then we're going to move down to the side of the triangle that says what. So what outcome, what end result do you want to see? Do you want to be able to hike up to the top of the mountain? Do you want to be able to walk to the store instead of driving your car, obviously depending on where you live? What is that outcome, that end result? Do you want to be able to lift heavier weights? Do you want to have the flexibility to touch your toes? Everyone has a little bit different outcome and end result that might be good for them. And we really want to acknowledge that and focus on doing what's good for our bodies and achieving an end result that is possible when we're setting our goals. We want to be realistic and keep them small and simple to start. And we work up to more bigger goals and different end outcomes. We want to talk about the how of our goals. So how are we going to accomplish running a 5K? How are we going to accomplish being able to hike up to the top of the mountain to that nice overlook, or maybe run down the beach, whatever the case may be. So we want to keep our goals small and simple to start, and we want them to be reasonable. You might have heard of the SMART goals before. So we want them to be measurable as well. So if we're thinking of our end goal and we say that we want to run an ultra marathon in the next month, that's not really reasonable. It is measurable, it is measurable in that you have a certain 100K marker of that ultra marathon. But in a month, if we're starting on our couch, that's not really a reasonable goal. So we want to make a smaller goal. So maybe in the next month, we run a mile. Maybe in the next month, depending on our activity level, we run 2 miles. And so we have to make these goals that are measurable so that we have that marker that it's 2 miles, and obtainable so that it's a shorter distance. It's not that ultra marathon. And we have to keep a time frame. We have to keep that end time in mind. So it is a month instead of saying like, sometime in the future, I want to run 2 miles. You really got to set that goal so that you can strive to it and achieve it. It also helps with your goals if you do have an accountability buddy. So there have been various studies that show they don't necessarily have to do the workouts with you or whatever your activity is with you. Just even that they can check in with you and say, hey, did you go for that run this morning? Did you go for that walk? Did you ride your bike this morning? Did you do yoga? Whatever your activity is. So having that person that's there and can help hold you accountable and make sure that you're still working towards your goals is great. So we want to know our why we want to do it. We want to know our what, the end outcome, the end result, and then we want to know how we're going to get there. Our next tip is to spice up the basics. So we already talked about with kids that we have 4 different components here of physical activity: strength, cardiovascular, flexibility, and neuromotor. So we want to think about trying to incorporate all of those into our activities throughout the day, as well as throughout the week. So strength doesn't have to just mean, oh, I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting weights. If you're not that person, that's great. Find something different that works for you. Not all physical activities work for all people, and that's okay. Maybe your strength is, picking up your kids. Maybe your strength is doing gardening outside and you're, moving that wheelbarrow around and using your arms and your back to pick up the wheelbarrow and push it around. Maybe that's where your strength training comes in a little bit more. Maybe you like to do old-fashioned push-ups and squats and things like that, pull-ups. Maybe that's your strength instead of going and lifting dumbbells. Find what works for you and then spice it up a little. Your cardiovascular, once again, doesn't have to be straight running or the elliptical or hiking. It can be anything. If you like swimming, if you live, near the ocean, maybe that's what you go for. It is getting a little colder, so maybe we need to, think about those things as well when we're thinking about what can we do for the fall and winter months. So maybe if you live closer, towards the mountains where it might snow a little more, maybe you think about cardiovascular activities as cross-country skiing in the winter when it starts to snow more. Things that aren't, get you outside a little more that aren't straight in the gym kind of work. Flexibility, we want to think about, can we get down to tie our shoes? Can we, put on our clothes easily? Things like that. Flexibility is an important component of our fitness, as well as that neuromotor coordination. So it's something that we do learn as kids, and we really want to emphasize in our children, learning that coordination and everything. But that doesn't need to go away as adults. We need to still work with our brain and exercise it just as well as the rest of our body. So Abby, when she created this handout, has some great examples here of different things that we can do. Instead of standing in one place and doing jumping jacks over and over again, maybe we mix it up a little. So we do a jumping jack and then we do a squat, which is more of a strengthening move, working our leg muscles, whereas jumping jack is more of that cardiovascular move. And then we do a side bend, which incorporates some flexibility. Some of the neuromotor activities are doing things like alternating the leg there that you see in the example number 3. So changing it up a little, old adage of, can you pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time? Similar movements, but you can make it quicker and make them bigger and make it more of a workout and more cardiovascular as well. Instead of a normal jumping jack out and in, can you do your legs out and in as your hands move back and forth? gets a little bit more of that brain working a little harder as well. And then our number 3 tip to spice it up is to be intentional with your incidental. So Crystal and I were kind of talking about this before we got started. You know, do you get up and you take a walk to go get your water? Do you, you know, before you sit back down in your chair, maybe you do 3 squats every time you get up to use the bathroom or whatever. Before you sit back down, you do 3 squats and then you sit down. Those little things add up. The physical activity guidelines for Americans have shown that any little bit of activity does help. It used to be that the thinking was that it had to be in certain time periods of 10 minutes or more, but really, excuse me, more evidence has shown that any little bit helps. So here we have tips of using your non-dominant arm to clean, to really work your brain a little more, use that neuromotor control, neuromuscular control. Maybe instead of cleaning, maybe it's even just brushing your teeth with the opposite hand. You'd be surprised how much you have to think about that, unless you're ambidextrous. Using some strength, so like when you're doing laundry detergent, we already kind of talked about squats when you get up to sit or come back down, but maybe you use the laundry detergent as you're you know, pouring that in, especially if you get some of the bigger ones, they can be pretty heavy. So you can use that to gain some of your strength, or maybe when you're getting things out of the dishwasher, instead of bending over and rounding through your back to pick up a plate, you keep your back straight, sink your hips back and down, and squat to pick up your next plate. And maybe you do that every single time. It takes a little longer to unload the dishwasher, but instead of picking up 10 plates at once, you just pick it up one at a time, and you incorporate some of your physical activity there. It's really important that we do get in some more activity throughout our day as well. Some people have the physical activity trackers like Fitbits or Apple Watch, or maybe you set an alarm on your phone that every hour you're going to get up and you're going to do a lap. Whether that's up and down your stairs, maybe you have a driveway that you can go out to, maybe you just walk, you know, around the inside of your house, but something to get a little movement into your day instead of being sedentary for your whole 8-hour workday, or, you know, even 2 hours on the couch watching TV or whatever the case may be. You set that intention to get up and get a little more movement, a little cardio into your day. And then I kind of already touched on this earlier, but flexibility is important for a lot of things. And one of the incidental ways that we can get more flexibility into our day is something like getting dressed. So instead of sitting down and putting on your shoes, maybe you keep standing and you hinge at your hips and reach down and tie your shoes there. If you're not flexible enough for that right now, that's okay. Maybe that's one of your goals. Maybe at the beginning, your legs are still a little bent, and then as you get more flexibility in your hamstrings and your lower back, you can enable yourself to straighten your legs a little more. Maybe if that's not possible for you, maybe you start seated and you start being able to, or to work on being able to get your ankle up on your opposite thigh and put your shoe on that way. And that can actually stretch the outside of your hip and thigh if you're reaching your knee down towards the floor instead of letting it come up towards your chest. You know, even things like putting on shirts and things like that, you don't think about until you lose it, that that requires flexibility in your shoulders and in your wrists and your hands to be able to do that. So maybe before you put on your shirt, you really reach your hands up, and maybe you add in a tricep stretch. You reach back and you can either press here on your elbow or reach behind you and gently pull the elbow towards the back of your head here. Maybe you just add that in as you get dressed, thinking about being incidental or intentional with your incidentals here. And then our last tip here, and this is a great one to use with your family if you live with anyone or if you have a pet, to really gamify getting your sweat on. So when you are doing board games, card games, playing games on your phone is, you know, super popular these days. Maybe you're doing a plank, or maybe you're doing a wall sit instead of sitting at the table and playing, you know, Minecraft on your phone or whatever the games on your phone may be. You're doing a wall sit, or you're doing a plank and holding yourself up on your forearms as you play a game. You know, maybe you incorporate that into your Uno. Every time you draw 4, you have to do 4 squats. and draw 4 cards. Those kind of things really help get the kids involved, get your pets involved if you're jumping around with them, those kind of things as well. The AMRAP commercial breaks here, that stands for as many repetitions as possible. So if you're sitting on the couch watching TV, and we know those commercial breaks can be kind of long, but maybe instead of sitting and watching the commercial breaks and being like, oh, this is boring, you get up during the commercial breaks and you go see how many sets of stairs you can run, how many squats you can do, how many jumping jacks you can do during the commercial break. And then maybe you keep a record, make it fun, see who can beat who, or if you can even beat your own self, especially if you live alone, if you can beat your own record from the last commercial break that you did 5 more jumping jacks or 3 more squats, or you held the plank the whole commercial break instead of coming back down halfway through. You can also gamify by setting household item fitness courses, using things that you have to, jump over this paper towel holder, or, use this broom to help you, twist side to side. Take the fun into it, put the fun into your sweat and your activity. And we already kind of talked about Uno and drawing 4, but you can also do that with other decks. So maybe a regular card deck, maybe if you draw the king, maybe that is that you have to do 5 toe touches. Maybe if you draw a queen, that's 3 crunches. Whatever the case may be, you can set it at your goal. So remembering that everybody's different. Maybe you just want to do 1 jumping jack if you draw the king, those kind of things. And that's okay. Starting where you're at, we're remembering to make those goals measurable, attainable, and realistic is the really big thing there, making realistic goals and working towards it. And then my last tip that we're gonna go with here, I'm gonna show you some easy stretches that we can do just to kind of get out of that funk of having ourselves crouched at the computer typing away. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so that y'all can see me a little bigger, hopefully. And I'm gonna back up. You can stay seated if you want, but I'm gonna back up so you can see a little more of my body here. And we're just gonna work in some activity this morning. So as I back up here, we're going to start from the top of our head and work our way down to our toes. And our first move is simple. You can do it seated or standing. We're inhaling and reaching up. Reach for the ceiling, stretch it tall. You might come on your tippy toes if you're standing. Exhale and gently come down. We're going to roll our shoulders forwards, backwards, whatever feels good to you. That's a big part of our physical activity tips today. Find what feels good for you. Maybe you do both at a time. We're releasing some of that stress that we get when we're seated or when we're driving a lot. And then we're sinking our shoulders down. Take an ear towards our shoulder. This is our first variation here. We could stay here. If we want a deeper stretch, we start reaching our opposite hand slightly away from our body, pressing the shoulder blade down, getting a deeper stretch here. Exhale, we're breathing through chin to center and then ear towards the other side. Once again, we can stay with our hands close in. We start to reach the opposite hand away from us. That deepens the stretch a little bit, reaches our shoulder blade into its pocket towards our hips. Gently bring it back to center. Maybe we rock a few times through center. Find a good stretch. Hold it there. And then we look up to the ceiling. So stretch the front of our throat here, nose up to the sky. And gently bring it back to center. Checking in with our wrists. We can press our hands together, interlace our fingers, and then roll through our wrists, working them out a little. They get tired when we're typing away or when we're doing close work here. We want to make sure that they stay nice and loose. We're releasing our hands and we're bringing them to our hips. We can widen our stance if we're standing. If we're seated, we're going to do a similar movement, but moving our shoulders. So we're taking it around in a circle. If we're standing, we have a little more leeway and we can circle both our hips and our shoulders. If we're seated, it's more of a shoulder movement here, working through our spine up tall. So hips and shoulders, or just our shoulders. Taking it around and then circle the other way. So we want to move our spine in all directions here. Bringing it back to center. sitting up tall or standing up tall. We're gonna pull in one knee. If we're standing, we're getting a little balance of work here too. I'm gonna turn to the side so you can actually see my knee come up a little bit better here. You can keep your foot flexed, or you can point your foot, and we're just gently pulling in. So even if you're seated, you feel a little bit of that stretch. If you're standing, you're working on your balance, but you can also grab onto a wall or a chair beside you if you need a little balance help here. And then just like our wrists, we're gonna roll at our ankles. Get some mobility through our joints. Slowly place this leg down. And then we're switching sides. So our other leg is coming up. Squeeze it into our chest, whether we're seated or standing. And then we're slowly rolling at the ankle. Working it out, creating space, moving through our joints. Slowly placing our foot back down onto the floor. Whether we're seated or standing, we're exhaling, hinging at our hips and bringing our chest towards our thighs. If we're standing, especially, we can use our support hands on our thighs. If we're seated, we might be able to get a little closer with our chest to our thighs. But we're feeling that stretch along our hamstrings, the back side of our thighs here, maybe a little into our back. Take a breath here, stretching it out. Standing back up nice and tall, roll our shoulders, and we're gonna find a calf stretch. If we are seated, we're extending one leg out long, pull our toes up towards our shin. If we're standing, use a chair for balance help if we need to, and we're slightly separating our feet like we got frozen in the middle of a step, and then we're slowly pressing forward through our hips. Switching sides, so come back both feet underneath us, our other foot steps back. If we're seated, we're extending out our opposite leg and pulling our toes up towards our knee, up towards our shin. Once again, just moving through our joints. Coming back up nice and tall. If we're standing, we can go ahead and take our seat again. And we're just wanting to remember to move throughout the day. So that's the big takeaway from today. We're moving into fall and we're keeping it moving. So even though the weather's cold, we can find things throughout our day, really work those incidentals, work around our house, as best we can here. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the chat box and Crystal can let me know.
Great. Thank you. Oh, I kind of want to keep stretching. That felt so good.
Exactly. You've got to just remember to start doing it. Set that alarm on your phone, put a reminder on the fridge, whatever the case may be, whatever works best for you.
Yeah, I don't know how other people are feeling, but when we started stretching, I just realized how tense my neck was, and I didn't realize it until we started stretching. So yeah. I'm going to do some more. So thank you for that. I do have a couple questions already in there. One that came up earlier was, is stretching a bone building activity?
Stretching is not a bone building activity. We need that impact. Flexibility is one of the components of fitness, so it is important to stretch. But bone building activities, they have that impact. So even walking, you have impact pressing your heel into the ground and lifting up. Whereas the swimming example was one that's not a bone building activity because the water is kind of supporting you and holding you up. So bone building activities, walking, running, bikes are not a bone building activity because you don't have that pressure onto your bones.
I'm glad you said that because I hadn't thought about that before, and I'm thinking my kids are getting a lot of activity because they're both on swim team. They're 9 and 11 and they're both on swim teams. They're pretty active on swim team, but that's not building the bone, right?
Yeah.
So another question that also has to do with kids. For the kids, are they supposed to get aerobic activity each day of the week in addition to 3 days of muscle strengthening and 3 days of bone strengthening?
Yes, they are. So, and that's where the combination activities are a great option. So jumping jacks is a bone building activity and it's cardiovascular activity. You really get your heart rate pumping if you're doing some quick jumping jacks. So those kind of things, squats even, depending on if you're doing burpees, those kind of things. Burpees might be a bone building, an aerobic, and a muscle strengthening with the squats in between. So really trying those combination activities out.
Great, thank you. this is always the fastest 30 minutes of my entire week. I don't know about the rest of everyone, but we are at that time. There are a lot of us that like to walk. So we found that out. A lot of us are really enjoying walking for many different things. A lot of us saying it's just a stress reliever. So glad to hear that's really good, and stretching. So thank you, Anna, for really helping us, with some reminders and some new tips for taking care of ourselves and staying moving. There's some good ideas that people are posting about what they're going to do. Some with their 4-Hers. It's really good thoughts. So I want to thank everyone for coming on today. Encourage us to be intentional about our movements and how we keep ourselves physically active and keep our children physically active for our overall health. And I'm grateful for some new and fun ideas to implement as well. So having said that, as you all know, we will send out the recording link and the resources that Anna has for us. Thanks for being here. And Anna, thanks so much for guiding us through the conversation today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bethany. Everyone have a great weekend. Bye.